Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Christmas virtual Freeform Festival. For the rest of the day, we have some amazing cookery demonstrations, some great insight chats with people. And we are kicking off with a dear friend of Freeform Festival, Ali Walsh. And she's going to be here with some top tips talking about, well, if you're wondering how on earth to survive a Christmas gluten-free, Ali is here with something really great to show us and tell us all about. Ali's been a coeliac for over 20 years. That's 2 decades of expertise poured into an hour's masterclass on gluten-free cooking, socializing and navigating Xmas in a general way, because you want to be able to deal with those pesky relatives who say, why can't you eat this just once? Absolutely. So as well as easing your gluten-free Christmas burdens, with Ali's help, you'll soon be king of the kitchen or queen of the kitchen. So winning over the most skeptical relatives on the big day. We hand over now to Ali Walsh to tell us all about what she's got lined up for us today. Hi, Ali.
Hi, thanks so much. Right, well, welcome, big welcome to our frosty 4th of December online event. I was hoping to see you guys in person, just as I did in London, but we are here now, and I'm just going to touch my camera because at the moment I'm still looking at Tony and I'm hoping that I can see just myself. So excuse me while I keep going. I can't actually do that, so I'm just going to carry on talking. So I've got lots of top tips today, whether you're newly diagnosed celiac, whether you're going to somebody else's for Christmas and you're a bit worried about exactly what's going to happen and whether you're going to stay safe. And then thirdly, and this is my favorite thing, how to have an easier Christmas. The trouble with Christmas, I think, for many people is that they feel like they put 48 hours of labor into what turns out to be a 20-minute meal. And that's just a shame. So what I'm going to be doing today is introducing you to some labor-saving tips. And we're going to kick off with baking. So I will be baking today something that is not only gluten-free, but dairy-free, refined sugar-free, and it is a vegan dish if you want it to be as well. Now, I'm not making it vegan today. I've actually got something that contains egg, and you should be able to see this. It is Genius gluten-free pastry. The only allergen listed is egg. And if you are vegan, the alternative that you can have is made by Just Roll. That's JUS-ROL. And that's not only suitable for vegans, but it's obviously also celiac if you get the gluten-free pastry version. And that doesn't contain any egg. So if you have somebody who's allergic to egg, then you get that one. So I'm going to tilt my camera now and take you over to the kitchen. So turning around, Tony's going to leap in if for some reason I suddenly go off screen, but let's hope not. So there we are. You should be able to see me, I hope. And I'm just going to tilt up the camera just like that. Perfect. And we're going to move across and do this pastry dish, which only requires 6 ingredients, by the way. So coming over here, I hope you can see me. Ta-da! And we've got our Genius puff pastry here. This is freezable, which I think is fantastic because it means that you can buy weeks before you actually need it. Not too many weeks before. I had to defrost my freezer earlier this summer, and that wasn't particularly fun, I have to say, chipping out all the ice. So don't keep things in there too long. Not that that's what I normally do. You also need a tray. I've got one roughly this size, is a good size to have. I've already pre-cut myself some grease-proof paper. I've got a spray. The only thing that this contains is vegetable oil. So there are no allergens in it. And it is fantastic at making sure that your grease-proof or whatever paper that you're using to line your tin actually sticks to the tin. So once you've sprayed it in, you can turn your tin upside down and the paper stays there. So you move that to the side. I've got a rolling pin and I've also got some corn flour. Now, top tip if you're using corn flour is to make sure you have it in a little muslin. I'll show you this one here. In fact, I'm going to come back towards the camera so that you can see. Can you see that? That is a little muslin, and it means that you can evenly distribute corn flour like this as you go across, rather than getting a sieve and shoving a load of corn flour in and then creating a big splat of flour. You can put yours in like this, Now, gluten-free pastry is really different from regular pastry in that, and by regular I mean, you know, the one that mothers can eat with gluten in it. You're not supposed to handle it too much. So you may have been watching Bake Off this year, and the way that they use their pastry is not the way that you're going to be using yours. So I'm going to tap a little bit more corn flour on top, just there, and get rid of my wrapping there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll out the pastry so that it is about the width of a bit wider than a pound coin. Wider, a bit fatter than a pound coin. And as I do so, the corn flour prevents it from sticking to the surface that I'm using. I've got a marble surface here. If you're using something like a wooden surface, I really recommend that you get a mat and you put that on top so that you don't ruin your wooden surface. Now, the thickness there, I'm going to lift it up so you can see. In fact, I'm going to come close to the camera again. I'm going to do lots of these close-ups. There we go. There's the thickness that's best. And I'm also going to trim off a little bit from the end. So this is a little bit longer than the tray that I'm using. And to trim that off, I'm going to be using a pizza wheel. Pizza wheels are fantastic, particularly if you are baking with small children. And the reason I say that is because you really can't cut yourself too much on a pizza wheel. Roll it against your hands like that, and you'll see. Whereas with a knife, obviously, it's a little bit more dangerous. My kids are 4 and 5, so I'm always thinking about these things. If you don't have kids, then obviously you don't need to worry. Now, I've just trimmed off the edges of that, but if you don't care about the edges being, you know, a little bit ragged, then don't worry. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is with the pizza wheel, I'm going to create a sort of border as though it was some kind of picture frame. And I'm going to make a little indentation along the sides, both lengthways and then horizontal as well. But I'm only going in a little bit. I'm certainly not going to cut the pastry. And that's going to give us a nice little frame. I'm going to lift that into my tray. I'm going to come again for our close-up so that you can see. Can you see that? I think the light's shining on it a little bit. You should be able to see there's a line across there. And then I'm just going to wash my hands because I've got so much corn flour on my hands. I'm going to handle it with sink kindly to make sure that that's a very quick and nifty action. And then the next thing you're going to do, you're going to need either a hand blender or equivalent. I've got a hand blender. Believe it or not, this hand blender is nearly as old as I am. I remember my parents buying this in the 80s and I love it. I think it's fantastic. And it's going to help make a little tomato base. So I'm just going to get rid of some of this corn flour. And then I'm going to show you how to do the tomato base. Very, very simple. Simply going to need a can of chopped tomatoes and then one of these very fun concentrated tomato paste. And neither of these has any allergens in. If you can't have tomatoes, you can make up a base of something else. Maybe get some bell peppers and whiz them up in a food processor. You're not going to need that much. Just tip a few in, but you don't want the chunks in there. That's why it's important to have a hand blender or food processor if you really like. Now, this is one of my favorite bits. Just squeeze in some tomato paste, make it a little bit thicker, nicer, richer base. Now, this is the fun bit. I'm really hoping I don't splat myself with this, but yeah, there we go. Can you hear that? Very satisfying. That's just basically blending these tomatoes together so there are no lumps. And then the next bit, this is the bit where your toddler can join in if you want, because you're not going to be using any machinery, you're just going to be using a spoon. So I'm going to put that back on one side here, tucked lovingly out of the way, and we're going to get our tray again. I'm just going to wipe that down a little bit more, that corn flour, because I don't want it on the base of my tray. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you've forgotten that something is on a surface, popped something else on top, and then when you put your hand underneath, you get all of that, whatever it might be, grease, corn flour, whatever. And the worst thing is if you put it in the oven and then suddenly you smell burning because you forgot to remove it from the bottom surface. Anyway, here's your spoon. Here's the tomato mixture. Just going to pop it on and make sure that you go inside. In fact, let's do the close up again. Can you see this? I'm going to go inside the frame of the tomato. Oops, gone a little bit over. So with the tomato going around the frame, that will do nicely, I think. And here, and then the next bit is the really fun bit, and that is where you'll need a chopping board, and you'll need a green bell pepper and a yellow bell pepper. Now, with the yellow bell pepper, all you're going to do is chop the end off, and what you're going to be doing with these bell peppers is you're going to be making a Christmas tree. And if you look at this bell pepper, you'll see, like regular bell peppers, you're just going to be chopping off this bit to make your Christmas tree base. And the yellow will make a really nice colour in the oven. And you're going to pop that at the bottom of your design. I'm going to come back over so you can see that close up. So you've got the bottom bit there, just there for your Christmas tree base. And then I prepared these because I thought you do not want to sit here watching me chop up loads of green bell pepper. That would not be my idea of cookery fun. So what I've done is I've chopped them into different lengths. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find 2 pieces to create the center of the Christmas tree and just put them in the middle of the Christmas tree. And in fact, I'm just going to move this over so that things are easier to see. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take little pieces of green bell pepper and you're going to start at the top of the tree, leave a bit of space because we are going to make a star. And that star, believe it or not, is going to be made out of mushroom. And it makes a brilliant star, it really does. I've put 3 little pieces. In fact, you know what? I'm going to dare to pick up this camera, bring it over and show you. Oops. Can you see? Right, hang on, you can see me. I know you can. You don't want to see me. You want to see what I'm doing here. So over here, yes, brilliant. So in fact, actually, if I can move my tree like that, then you can see it. We're beginning this tree. And then the next thing I'm going to do is find a slightly longer piece. That might be a little bit too long. In fact, let's pour out some more of these pieces. This is going to be like one of those funny, this is like one of those games you play at Christmas. Right, there we are. There's a longer piece that's going to go in. And you know what? Sometimes I think these look better if you put them sideways. So actually, we might put these sideways. You'll see what I mean when it gets baked, because it looks better. And then the next piece I'm going to put in, oh, that bell pepper's starting to turn red. That's a bit annoying. Don't want that. Don't turn red on me. You want a green Christmas tree. And let's see, another piece. And this is something that is so much fun to do, especially if it's one of those Christmases where family didn't get to see them last year and you're thinking, I really want to spend more time chatting than I do making stuff, but I still want to eat really well. So this is one of those things to do. Plus, if you're vegan and or you are celiac, then you really want to make sure that you're eating something that you'll really enjoy. And I'm searching around here for another, I just need one more. I bet you're sitting at home going, it's there, I can see it. Well, I'm going to put that red one in. Okay, so you can see there, that's me here. You can see there that I've got the Christmas tree shape, but we need a star at the top. So to do that star, let's just put all these bell peppers back into the box. I'm going to roast these later. Something that you always seem to see people doing at Christmas is roasting vegetables, and that can be fun to have. I'm going to cut it so you see it sideways. So if you slice the top off the mushroom, the next bit that you slice off, you'll see, let's put it that way, you can fit a star cutter on top. Can you see that? So our star cutter goes on top, and I'm just going to press that down, and then what should pop out gently, because I'm going to break my star. Come on, star. There we are. There's our little star, and that is going to sit nicely at the top of the tree, and I'm going to pop that in the oven. So holding you up with me like so, I'm going to take you over to the oven. This is interactive. I really need a cameraman. Can you organize that for me next time? I'll have my own cameraman. So into the oven, 190 degrees, popping that in, and I'm going to set it for half an hour. And that should give me enough time to tell you all about how to have an easier Christmas when you're gluten-free. And I'm going to take you back over back over to the bit that I was in to begin with. Here we are. And I will make sure, by the way, later on Instagram that you have, are you still there? I hope you are, because suddenly I can't see anything. Are you guys still there? Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to take you around, do that.
Well, we seem to have lost Ali for one moment, but I'm sure she's working technically behind the scenes to get everything sorted. Maybe the camera came unplugged. As soon as Ali is ready to talk to us again, we will go back to her. For those of you who may have just joined us, don't forget that all of the presentations today and the cooking demos will be available on the Free From the Christmas marketplace, where you can also get lots of Christmas treats with 20% discount. All you have to do is put in the code FFF and that will get you to the 20% discount. So that's 3 Fs and Xmas. Right, we're still working on trying to get Ali back with us, and whilst we're going on with that, I know some of you have been to our live events. And the live events, of course, are very exciting because not only do you get to see and hear all about this, but very often you get to try it as well, which is my favorite part of hosting all of the talks. Looks like we are connecting back with Ali any second now, and she just needs to unmute herself.
I have unmuted myself. I'm so sorry. Oh dear. Right, I'm back, and the light for some reason is pinging on me, so I may just have to turn around. No, I think we'll stay here. So you saw how to make the Christmas tree. That's going to be ready in 25 minutes because it's taken 5 minutes for me to sort my camera out. So for now, let's talk about how to make life a little bit easier at Christmas if you're celiac. If it's your first Christmas, you may be a little bit nervous, you may not know quite what's going on, what to do. So it's important to read up on things like cross-contamination and know what they mean. And by that, it basically means you cannot use the same toaster as somebody else. You cannot use the same knife if they've buttered their own bread. All those crumbs, anything that basically, if you had handled something that was poison and then you went and handled the gluten-free food, you wouldn't be able to eat. So think of it, instead of as a cross-contamination with gluten, think of it as cross-contamination with poison. And that's the way you need to explain it to your family. If they're saying, oh, it doesn't matter if there's a few crumbs, you say, well, would you feel like that if it were arsenic or if it were COVID? That's actually quite a clever one to put in there, because then a lot of people tend to get the message. But let's go back to the Christmas feast that you will be having. And one of the things, if you're not vegetarian or vegan, is of course turkey. And I am delighted to say that more and more supermarkets are offering turkey joints with gluten-free stuffing. Seriously, I have got the Aldi, can you see it here? Make Christmas amazing for everyone. And they have little gluten-free symbols on all the things that are suitable for celiacs. I can count here not 1, not 2, but 4 different turkeys that you can have that have got stuffing in them. I'll read some of them out to you. You can have free-range turkey parcels. Now, these are brilliant if you haven't actually got that many people coming for Christmas. There's a stuffed roly-poly turkey crown, and then there's just a stuffed turkey crown. I don't know what the difference is between the two. Oh, the roly-poly one has bacon on it. And then there's other stuff that you can have as well. So that is Christmas sorted if you're not going to go to your local butcher and get a regular turkey. It may be that your local butcher does gluten-free stuffing, in which case, fantastic. If they don't, and if you actually prefer to make the stuffing yourself, if you've got anybody in your family who goes, oh, does it have to be gluten-free? Then just tell them that stuffing works best with stale breadcrumbs. And quite often, gluten-free bread tastes a little bit stale if you haven't got good gluten-free bread. By the way, when you come to the festival in March in Bristol, there will be a bakery there, My Gluten-Free Bakery. They are fantastic. They do not taste like stale bread. But for the kind of bread that you might get from the supermarket, especially if it is a few days old, it can sometimes taste a bit stale. And if you whiz it up in the food processor and make breadcrumbs, then you can make the most delicious stuffing. Get fresh herbs if you can, because they make it even better. And I always believe that if you get the best ingredients, then the stuff that you're serving, when people go, oh, I don't want to eat gluten-free, will taste so much better that people will go, I would never have known this is gluten-free. So you've got your stuffing sorted if you want to make it, or if you want to get it elsewhere. And by the way, it's not just Aldi. There were other places. Lidl's fantastic when you walk around, because you look up on their sign and next to it will be a gluten-free symbol if the products they're selling is gluten-free. So you don't even need to pick up the packet to check. Although I would say always check ingredients and allergens. But if you just want to be quickly going around the supermarket and grab stuff, and then in the queue, just double check you're reading the ingredients. Oh, great, it is gluten-free, and then you'll be fine. So let's move on. Potatoes. Oh, one time I went out and I had a Christmas dinner early. It was before Christmas on a boat of all places. And I wrote down for the chef everything that I could eat, and I put celiac, gluten-free, cannot have, and he coated my roast potatoes in semolina. You cannot have semolina if you are celiac. So if you have somebody that you know cooks with semolina, or maybe you're eating at a hotel or a restaurant or wherever, just double check that the chef isn't using semolina, and make sure you have a celiac restaurant card with you if you are eating out. These are brilliant. Print one out, just Google celiac restaurant card, print one out, give it to the waiter to give to the chef, so that the chef knows that you're not a fatty person who is trying the gluten-free diet because you think it might make you healthier, and they know to take your diet seriously. I'm not saying that chefs don't usually take diets seriously, but the gluten-free restaurant card will go into all the things like cross-contamination that I mentioned earlier that is so important. You don't want to ruin Christmas by having prepared everything gluten-free and then accidentally cross-contaminated and then got sick because you didn't think about cross-contamination. So we've talked about turkey, talked about stuffing, gravy. Good gravy shouldn't be made with wheat flour. When I was little, my mum used to put corn flour in. This one's from Bellbake, but you can buy pretty much any corn flour. I have never seen a corn flour that contained gluten. That said, always check, particularly if it is a brand you've never heard of before. Some brands, you know, everything they do is gluten-free, and other brands, I'll never forget a friend going on holiday and discovering the brand Walrus. They were makers of baked beans. Not sure I would have trusted them. Who knows? Walrus might be a brilliant brand now, but years ago, the taste of the beans wasn't good either. So if you're making gravy, just make sure that you've got a gluten-free stock cube if you're using a stock cube, although as I said, good gravy shouldn't have wheat in anyway, because you're using the juices of the turkey, and then you're using possibly some corn flour, possibly you're throwing in a little wine. You can have wine if you're celiac, by the way. Wine is suitable for a celiac diet, and it's obviously dairy-free as well. Yorkshire puddings. There's some contention about this. Some people may feel that Yorkshire puddings are not part of a Christmas dinner. I'm not going to go into that now. All I'm going to say is that you can easily use a gluten-free flour and corn flour, and I've got a recipe up on YouTube. It's also dairy-free, so you can watch that. Just Google gluten-free Yorkshire puddings, and mine comes up. I think I've had about 10,000 watches so far, so you can ramp those up even further if you wish. Christmas pudding. Oh, I love, love, love Christmas pudding. And if you want to make it refined sugar-free, it's actually pretty simple. You just substitute the sugar that you would have used in a regular gluten-free recipe for something else like syrup. So you might want agave syrup, maple syrup, still makes an amazing pudding. In fact, I actually think it makes it better. And if you are dairy-free as well, then just use oil instead of butter if that goes into the recipe. And I actually think it makes a more moist Christmas pudding. That's why I say it's better. If you're avoiding alcohol, soak your fruit in apple juice first, and then you can use it the next day to put into your pudding to go with your pudding. You can find a lot of different solutions if you aren't able to have things like cream or ice cream. And those will be in the chilled free-from aisle. Just have a look at the range of things. Even Elm Lee, which is a brand I knew when I was a kid, are doing a dairy-free cream. Just make sure you always check the allergens on the back, because I always expect as a celiac that something without dairy that I would find in the dairy aisle that is now without dairy will also be gluten-free, but it's not always the case. There are some cheeses out there, and by cheeses I mean cheeses. They are vegan cheeses that contain oat fiber. So it's really important to check that it's gluten-free oat fiber, or if, like me, you can't tolerate oats as well. It's about 5% of celiacs who can't tolerate oats. Then just avoid oat fiber altogether. Also in pizza bases. And I'm saying that because Christmas, post-Christmas, that meal tends to be one where everyone goes, oh, I don't know that I want leftovers. What's in the freezer? And you shove a pizza in the oven. Just be really careful if you buy a gluten-free pizza that you avoid anything that has oat fiber in. You will find them in the supermarkets. However, you will also find ones that don't have oat fiber in. Hurrah! Let's move on. Mince pies. You can make your own mince pies using pastry. You could use the pastry that I just showcased there. You can make your own pastry. I believe somebody is coming on later. I think Vicky is coming on later to talk about beautiful mince pies. And to avoid the sugar in the mincemeat, you can either buy a refined sugar-free mincemeat, or you can make your own. I'm somebody that likes to take shortcuts if I can when it's my own personal cooking. So I would advise buying that refined sugar-free mincemeat if you're like me. Otherwise, if you love making that lovely aroma when you cook something in the kitchen, you go for it, you make it. And then you can make mince pies yourself. You can also buy gluten-free mince pies from most supermarkets, but they will contain sugar. So if you're looking for the refined sugar-free ones, make sure that you go for the option where you're making it yourself. Chocolates at Christmas. Who doesn't love chocolates at Christmas? One error I used to make when I was a new celiac that I soon learned to stop is to give other people chocolates that contain gluten. So one of my favorite things to do was give out Ferrero Rocher. And unfortunately, Ferrero Rocher are not gluten-free. And the first thing someone will do is open the box and offer it back to you. And it looks really weird if you've given someone a present and you don't want to accept it yourself. So what I would do is sack that off and find yourself some refined sugar-free chocolates that taste amazing. Bouger Bouger are fantastic. They're not only gluten-free, dairy-free, they're also vegan. And you can go into any supermarket and peruse the free-from aisle for something that you think everyone will love. So that's worth exploring. Let's move on to alcohol and soft drinks. It used to be the case that unless you were driving, people would expect you to be drinking. That is no longer the case. And I am proud to say there are lots of non-alcoholic gins out there. And you may have seen a few of them in the shops. I used to love Salino. I still do. People have said a lot of good things about Seedlip, but I found an own brand one in the supermarket the other day. And because it was half the price of everything else, I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And it was absolutely delicious. So by the way, I'm not here to promote any one brand. So if I say Lidl, Waitrose, Tesco, whatever, it's just because I happen to have found it there. It's not because they're sponsoring me. So go to the supermarket and buy a bottle of that for anyone that you know won't be drinking, because it feels like such a treat. I don't know about you, but there's only so much orange juice that I can drink at Christmas. And it also feels a bit like the poor alternative, like, oh, you can't drink. Oh, well, here's an orange juice. And, you know, if I want an orange juice, I have an orange juice, but I don't want it as my only alternative when everybody else is having a sherry or a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. So if you can't drink, or if you have a guest who's coming who can't drink, make sure you buy a bottle of that. Get yourself some lemons in, a nice wedge, thick wedge of lemon, some ice, and some tonic into those non-alcoholic gins as well is a real treat. And you can have more than one. Whereas with the orange juice, it doesn't feel like you can have more than one. So go for that. If you're drinking, all wine is gluten-free, all spirits are gluten-free, except there is an urban myth about spiced rum. I've never found it, but it must exist because I know celiacs have talked about it. So if you are buying yourself a funny type of spirit that has stuff added into it, have a look at the back and just check the ingredients and the allergen information. And if you're unsure, put it back on the shelf and just buy yourself a regular rum and add in the extras yourself that you know are gluten-free. And those extras might be spices. Again, check the back of the spice that you're using, or it might be cloves or oranges, etc. Things like mulled wine. Mulled wine, I've not yet come across one that isn't gluten-free. Always check. I went to London a few weeks ago, and when I asked if the mulled wine was gluten-free, the guy, he didn't even have to blink. He just read off an ingredients list in front of him, and I was able to have this beautiful mulled wine that was kept totally separate, no ladles cross-contaminating from other spirits. So it was all wonderful. So we've talked about gluten-free drinks that you can have. You can get gluten-free beers, by the way, before I finish this. So obviously other people might be cracking open a beer. If you want gluten-free beer, there is actually a Facebook group that is specially for gluten-free beers. So just put in the search toolbar, gluten-free beers in a Facebook group, and it'll come up and you'll see so many wonderful recommendations. I remember when I first saw gluten-free beer in the supermarket thinking, oh, wow, gluten-free beer. Now you can get 9 or 10 different versions in a large supermarket that are all gluten-free. I mean, that is amazing. And the fact that we have the free from aisle as well, rather than just the shelf that appeared in 1997 in my local supermarket is fantastic. So we've talked about what food you can eat, but we haven't really talked about the type of people that you are going to have to navigate over Christmas. Now, it may be that you have a wonderfully loving family and you know that you can trust them, and you've been celiac for a while and you don't have any cares and worries. There aren't many people that have that story. I usually meet someone, even if they have the loveliest family, who'll do something like they'll pick something up and they'll go, hey, oh, I got this specially for you. And you look at the back of the packet and it's got wheat in, or it's got rye, or it's got one of those terrible may contains in it. Always avoid may contains. If it has made in a factory that handles wheat, may contain gluten, any of these different permutations, it's basically saying may poison you. And you don't want to take that risk. It's playing Russian roulette with your health. And let me tell you, as somebody who was glutened last Christmas, it is horrible watching everybody else have their meal whilst you run back and forth to the loo. By the way, if you're wondering why I was glutened, it's because I bought a packet of food that was incorrectly labelled. That has now been removed from the shelves, and I am not going to purchase food again from the shop that I bought it from. So just be vigilant when it comes to buying things, especially if you haven't seen them before, like those walrus baked beans. So best case scenario is that you have people who are well-intentioned and you just have to get good at saying to them, I'm really sorry, I can't eat this. In fact, you don't even need to apologize and say, I know you really meant well. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Unfortunately, this contains something I can't eat. Now, I've heard other people, other celiacs advise against this and say, oh, just say thank you. Don't just say thank you, because they'll buy it for you again and again, and they'll try and feed it to you. So the worst case scenario is that they've sneaked it onto your plate and you've eaten it, and then of course you're ill. So please, please, please always be honest with someone. And if you don't like confrontation, see it like this. This may be your Christmas to confront people in as kind a way as you possibly can and say, I can't have this. This will make me ill. I'm not sure if that's gluten-free, and it's heightening my anxiety, wondering whether it's really safe for me. So please, just to be on the safe side, I'm not going to have that on my plate. Using all these different things to say to people, you just want to keep yourself safe. It is not other people's choice what you eat, it is your choice. And if that means having a confrontation with someone, if it means things get a little bit heated, at least next Christmas and the next Christmas, you'll have done yourself a favor, because they will know that you're not going to take any risks. And that's the baseline. Please don't take risks. Please don't think, I'm a little bit sozzled, I might as well have a couple of Coronas. It's just not worth it. Even if you do not feel any kind of symptoms when you've accidentally or deliberately had gluten, it's just not worth trying to have that conversation with someone where you go, oh, it'll be all right. Or if somebody says, oh, it's just a crumb, it may, I had a chef once say, oh, it's just traces. And unfortunately, he was Spanish and I don't speak Spanish. And I was trying to tell him that traces do matter. And I think in the end, we ended up speaking in French, because both of us knew more French than he knew English and I knew Spanish. Anyway, so try and have conversations with friends and family in a way that makes you comfortable about your food. But the best tip that I can give you is to have these conversations now, before the big day, before they've bought in something that you can't have. So if you want, go onto my blog on Life on a Rice Cake, type in celiac Christmas in the search toolbar, and you'll see some posts that I've written about how to handle things and things to buy, things to look out for. The main culprits, I think, are the ones like stock cubes and sauces and things that people don't always realize have gluten in. So make sure you're having those conversations with people now. Say to people, I know that you're very kindly doing Christmas. I want to make sure I'm super safe, and just go over things. Send them the articles that you found in my blog post if you think it will help, especially if you're just thinking, I can't have those confrontations that you've just mentioned. So you can say, this is an article that really helped me when I first got celiac disease. I'd love it if you'd read it as well. And that way we can make sure that on Christmas Day, I'm able to enjoy everything that you've slaved over a hot stove for me. And I know that, you know, you're going to all this trouble, and I want to make sure that that effort is worth it. Also, if you know somebody in your friends or family group who is just not prepared to do gluten-free for you, you can tackle that conversation if you wish and say, oh, so you're not providing for me again. Or you can think of it like this. I think people are often scared because they think, oh no, what if I get it wrong? And if you take it from that point of view, then it's better that you bring your own food, or you bring something that is very, very quick to put in the oven. Maybe it's pre-prepared and you just shove it on your own baking tray and put it in the top of the oven. If there's anything else in the oven that might contain gluten, and then drop onto your food below, don't do that. Better still, separate oven if you can. If you can. You may not be as lucky as me. I've got an amazing range oven, and it's got 3 different ovens, which I use regularly, and I find it super useful at Christmas. But to be honest, there are never enough ovens. Anyway, so if you've got questions, please, please, please type them in now so that I can hear what your worries are and what your concerns. For me, when I first turned celiac, it was about staying safe. I just kept getting things wrong. So I remember we went out for Chinese as a celebration, and there was a battered prawn ball, and I started eating the battered prawn ball before I thought, oh, what goes into batter? So it was a lot of trial and error to begin with. Later on, I found things a little bit more difficult when I had a family of my own, because I realized that I was never putting myself first, because I kept thinking, oh, I don't want to put people out, it doesn't matter. But when I thought my daughter might be celiac, I suddenly realized how important it was that her needs were met. And it made things a lot more awkward when it was things like we were going to restaurants and so on, because everything absolutely definitely had to be okay for her. I remember there were many times when I would just go hungry. There's no way I'm going to let my children go hungry. So it's important that you make sure everything is set up before you go, if you are traveling this year at Christmas, to somebody else's house to eat. Now, I know you're probably wondering about that Christmas tree, and the time is nearly up for that. So I'm going to squeeze in a few more things. If you don't want to cook at Christmas, you don't just have to buy something from the supermarket. You can go online, and I really recommend joining local celiac groups. So for example, I live in Bristol, and there's a group called Coeliacs in Bristol. So if you live in Manchester, just type in Coeliacs Manchester and something should probably come up. In fact, if you live in Manchester, you're probably shouting at the screen now going, yes, and you can tell us about that celiac group. So Coeliacs in Bristol, yesterday someone popped up, and her name is Laura Wooding, and she makes pre-prepared things like nut roast. Now, I haven't had nut roast for ages. It used to be the thing for vegetarians and vegans, but the reason I haven't had it is because I haven't found a gluten-free one. This one is not only gluten-free, plant-based, it's also no added sugar. And if you're thinking sugar in a nut roast, you'd be surprised at how often they sneak sugar into things, pasta sauces, that sort of thing. And Laura has just set up her own business, and it has the most delicious things that you can buy. And she delivers within Bristol. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, that sounds exciting, but I don't live in Bristol, have a look for somebody who delivers locally in your area that does gluten-free food. And if you need to avoid dairy, like Laura, you can have dairy-free as well. She's also given me a walnut and hemp baked bar. It's got gluten-free oats in it, so I can't have it, but most celiacs would be able to have it. And then finally, and these are super gorgeous, I hope you can see these. These are raw gluten-free Christmas puds. They are plant-based, refined, sugar-free, natural. And on the back, you'll see all the allergens. It says allergens in bold. The only allergens are nuts, and they are almonds and cashews. The other ingredients, gorgeous things like sultanas, apricots, dates, coconut milk, maple syrup, that sort of thing. Got a pinch of sea salt. It says best before 3rd of February. Ha ha, Laura, like it's going to make it past today. That's another thing about buying in advance. I always think, don't buy it now. There's no way I could resist things like Christmas puddings and gorgeous cookies and so on. I've been doing some new baking courses actually for Life on a Rice Cake, and I have come up with these gorgeous ginger cookie dough bites. They are amazing, and I was doing the photography for it yesterday. We made 12 cookie dough bites. They did not make it past midnight. I just kept going back for more. So that's what Christmas is all about, really, isn't it? It's about making sure that you take a pair of jeans that are a little bit slack, because you know by Boxing Day they're going to be a bit tighter, and it's about finding things that can make you feel like you're being treated, because Christmas should be about including you. Don't, as I used to do, just say, oh, don't worry about me. You know, that's not the way to pursue Christmas. So before we get my lovely Christmas tree out of the oven, I will mention one thing. I wanted to do something that you may have seen online. Loads of people are doing it, and they're making pastry Christmas trees with chocolate inside, and they're using Nutella, which of course is great if you can have dairy, but if you can't have dairy, you need an alternative. And I bought an alternative, and it's called Choco Bee, and it's by Rouse. And you've probably seen Rouse do honey. Well, this Choco Bee contains honey and cocoa powder, and that's it. I thought, I'll try. It smells amazing, by the way. I hope you can see that. I thought, I'll try that inside pastry. So I cut out little Christmas trees with my pastry cutter. Have I got it here? No, I haven't. But anyway, I had this Christmas tree pastry cutter, and last night I cut out these Christmas trees, put in my chocolate cocoa bee, or what's it called, Choco Bee from Rouse. And unfortunately, because it hasn't got the same kind of consistency as Nutella, it all dribbled out horribly and then started to burn inside. And thankfully inside the baking tray, not inside the oven itself. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can experiment yourself. In fact, what I did think about doing was you could cut out pastry Christmas trees yourself, bake them, and then have this as like a dipping sauce. You might want to heat it gently. By the way, if you are heating something gently, don't try it in a microwave. Even though this has nothing that could like metal or anything that can't go in a microwave, I really don't recommend putting it in. Sometimes things can overheat and then it's all horrible. So don't do that. I think it's nearly time for my Christmas tree. I'm going to go over, I'm going to take you with me. I'm going to hope, and Tony's going to hope, that the camera this time will stay with us. And we've got 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Oh, the Christmas tree is looking good. I think we'll leave it in there for another couple of minutes just to check, but I'm going to sit you up here so that I can talk to the camera. And hang on, let's just take you back down here. I'm having a little tour of my house today. This is where I work from. I'll tell you a little bit more about things that I'm going to be doing with Life on a Rice Cake as well, because I'm thinking of doing some Christmas baking online. And it might feature those ginger cookie dough bites we were talking about. And I was thinking about some other stuff like making a log cake. So if you're interested in doing stuff like this, of course, that's gluten and dairy free with no refined sugar, then let me know, because I want to know what you're interested in. I've told you today about turkey. Oh, I didn't mention bread sauce though. Bread sauce for me is just to die, and I love, love, love it on Christmas Day. And like making the stuffing that I told you about, it's really good with gluten-free breadcrumbs, really good. So make some bread sauce for yourself with gluten-free bread. Whiz up those breadcrumbs for the stuffing and the bread sauce. And you can make it a little bit in advance, not too far, because it goes a bit funny and you've got to keep it warm without it getting one of those skins on top. So just have a think about how you can do things so that you get the ultimate Christmas for yourself. And by the way, if you are ordering one of these wonderful nut roasts or the little Christmas puddings, because I know you've looked at these Christmas puddings and you're going, I want one of those. You can do it from Laura Wooding's website. She's laurawooding.com, and she's given a special code for everybody watching today. It is a discount of a whopping 20%. And it is this. I'm going to put it up here. So, this might be backwards. I bet it's backwards. So I'm going to read it to you. Oh, it's not. Oh, good. Okay, it's not backwards. It's free from 20. That gets you 20% off. And that is until the 23rd of December. And I believe Laura's delivering then as well. So if you're thinking, I'd like to be very lazy this Christmas, I don't even want to have to leave the house to get my wonderful free from goods, then make sure that you place an order with her if you're living within Bristol. And if you're not, I know that she is thinking about delivering further afield, unless, of course, you can find someone local to you who will be able to deliver something sumptuous for you to enjoy. There are lots of sites, by the way. I did an article for Gluten-Free Heaven magazine a couple of years ago, and it was just 3 months before COVID hit. And there were so many different places that were delivering and so on. Something that, oh, there's the pinger. Can you hear the pinger? I can hear the pinger. I'm going to take you over with me. We're going to go over again, and we're going to see this Christmas tree. So I'm going to get the oven gloves on. And by the way, I was baking with my daughter the other day, and she was able to do wonderful things like open the oven door. Right, I don't know if you can see it. I think you can. Can you see that's the Christmas tree? Now, I'm going to leave it in for a little bit longer because it crisped up a bit nicer yesterday. So I'm just going to leave it in there for a few more minutes. I know what I did. I know the reason it hasn't crisped up any nicer. I forgot to brush on the egg. That's really annoying. So I am going to take it out. I promise you, if you brush some egg on, if you can have egg, the egg white that you put on there will make it all lovely and golden. I'm going to show you again. There is the Christmas tree, and it's got that amazing base that was made out of the yellow bell pepper. If you want baubles on, you can use little cherry tomatoes, by the way. That's something else that I meant to put on. And there's your star made out of mushroom. But it's all really, really easy to do. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to sit back down, and I'm going to go back to Tony now for questions, because I know you have some questions. So let me just place you down here. My little fireplace at the back. Oh, I've got a snowman themed tablecloth, and it tends to get a little bit precarious. So I'm just going to put it back down there. I'm going to sit back and ask for questions.
Well, first of all, Ali, fantastic job. It was absolutely fascinating. And looks absolutely delicious. What I love about you, of course, is that you are just a font of information, and your enthusiasm and your passion to share is just absolutely magical. So thank you for that. We've got a comment in the box. Ruth Bruce says that every M&S stuffing that they've looked at so far has been gluten-free. So that's good.
Fantastic, Ruth. Fantastic.
So talking about cross-contamination, which you mentioned quite a lot, obviously, because that's one of the keys to existing outside of your own personal world and having to integrate with people who don't understand. What's the best way to help avoid cross-contamination in another person's kitchen that you could take with you, something that you could take along?
Yeah, because you don't want to be packing a massive suitcase of pans and so on. So what I would say is the first thing is take a roll of tin foil with you. Even if you think, oh, they've probably got tin foil, don't count on it. So take some tin foil. That's really easy to put in your suitcase. And then you can just wrap everything separately so that even if your thing is being put on the same baking tray as somebody else's, you know it won't have touched, as in actually touched their food. Another thing people like to buy is toaster bags. You can go to somewhere like Poundland for these. They will be a pound. They'll probably be a pound in the supermarkets as well. And what I would say about toaster bags is not only do they keep your toast, or well, your bread when you're putting it in, completely separate from all the breadcrumbs, but you do have to be super careful handling them, because of course the outside of the toaster bag can get crumbs on from the toaster you're using. So when you handle the toaster bag, tip your bread on your now toasted bread out carefully, then completely wash your hands and wash up the toaster bag, and then it's ready for use another time.
I've never heard of a toaster bag. I'm sorry, I must be living in the wrong age.
They are brilliant, because I remember when I first turned celiac, you could get the equivalent of what looked like a tennis racket made out of metal that you could put on the hob and you could toast your bread.
Right,
but
yeah.
Take a tennis racket with you. So toaster bags, just look in the supermarket, you'll see them near the baking stuff, they'll be there. Or you can order online.
And are toaster bags specifically for celiac? or are they just
well,
a
no,
different?
actually, you can do really weird things in them. You can put things like baked beans in them and then toast your baked beans. And I know, game changer. I did a toasty for my parents once where I put a layer of cheese and ham and regular bread because this was their house and I wasn't going to be eating it. And you put it in the toaster and you've just made yourself a toasty. So you can use them for a variety of reasons. And they'll have them all listed on the back. And they'll have little pictures of people doing things where you go, oh, no, never thought of that before.
Wow, brilliant. So, and as you were explaining that, I just had a thought, because obviously people who are not celiac and are not used to having to think about celiac protocol, you said you'd make something for your parents, that kind of in a toaster bag. If you touch something that has gluten, does that have an effect on you or not?
If you are celiac, just touching gluten is okay, as long as you don't then transfer it to your mouth. And I have a little test for anyone who thinks, oh, I wouldn't put it in my mouth. I don't know if you've seen them in the pharmacies. You can get what's called a forehead stick. And it's if you've got a really bad headache and you can just swipe it across your forehead and it's quite minty. And I did this once. I washed my hands afterwards. And later in the day, I could taste mint. And I realized I must at some point have touched my forehead and then transferred that minty sort of gel into my mouth. So if anyone's going, oh, cross-contamination, it's not going to happen, whatever, get them to try that test. Because I think as a celiac, it's really important not to handle gluten unless you are actually by a sink and you can wash your hands with lots of soap and water.
Okay, that's good advice. And as you rightly say, this time of year is obviously a very sociable time of year. We're all visiting friends and family, and obviously close friends and family would probably already know about celiac conditions with people. But when you're going to visit people who you've never met before, I think your advice about just not being embarrassed to be honest about your condition is really important, because obviously your enjoyment is just as important as making sure other people feel comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I'm really bad at. I'm very much a people pleaser. I'm always like, oh no, don't worry about me. And then I end up getting resentful because I'm not eating. So it's something I'm working on myself. And I really, really sympathize with anyone who, especially if it's your first Christmas, because you're going into this blindly. But I actually think that's a good way of starting out and saying, look, this is all new to me. And I'm finding it really difficult and so on. And then people tend to warm to you and cut you a bit of slack.
Right. Okay. And I guess obviously, when it's explained correctly that that it's like a poison, right? It's having a very negative adverse reaction to you. It's just that it's not that you just don't like the taste of it. I think people probably take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, and I think, I loathe what COVID has done, but at least one of the silver linings is people understand a little bit more about how important it is to wash your hands and that sort of thing. And I do know somebody who he invited a guest to a party, offered her a drink, and he scooped up with his hand some ice for her, poured a drink into a glass, gave it to her. Her lips started to swell up because she had a nut allergy and he had just been eating peanuts.
No.
And I remember thinking to myself, why wouldn't you wash your hands first? And I think a lot of people now are realizing, oh, we need to be a lot more health conscious. We need to make sure we're washing our hands and for longer, because they're afraid of COVID. And if you can weave that into a conversation about how that will make things safer for you as a celiac, then that's a win-win.
Absolutely. So we've only got a few minutes left now. Let's ask you another quick question, which is, what's your best time-saving bit of kit in the kitchen?
I like using one of those sandwich toasters. When I remember they came out in the 80s and everyone's like, yeah, get a sandwich toaster. And most people put them on a shelf and never use them again. I love them, and I love them for two reasons. Firstly, because I think having a toasty is a really delicious way to enjoy gluten-free bread. And secondly, because you don't just have to put bread in them, you can put pastry in. So if you cut yourself a square of pastry, get yourself some mincemeat and pop it in, put the pastry thing on top, close the lid, you can make yourself two little triangular mince pie slices.
Amazing. I love it. Such innovative ideas there. I do have to say that whilst you were struggling to reconnect, I had to make up a little bit of time, and I did tell everybody that there is a discount code, at the Free From Marketplace today, which there is. However, it's 10% and it's only for today. So everyone listening now, excuse my my confusion a little bit early on. If you put FFF, Free From Festival Xmas, as the code to get 10% discount for today on the marketplace, you will be able to make the most of that discount. Also, of course, what we've been talking about today and everything that follows will be online on the marketplace later tonight. So, Ali, are you staying in Bristol for Christmas?
No, it depends. I'm hoping that the COVID rules will permit us to travel, and if so, I'm going to Ilfracombe.
Ilfracombe, oh my goodness, I haven't been there for a very long time. It's a very pretty place.
Mm.
Well, it's been great talking to you today. Thank you so much. I think the Christmas tree idea is brilliant. It's timely. It's very of the moment and looks absolutely gorgeous to make and so simple. I mean, this is what I love about your presentations, of course, is that even for people like me that look at a kitchen and get scared, I can go, but I can do that.
You certainly, I can see you using that cutter for the mushroom star. I really can. You can do that.
I might make a whole night sky of mushroom stars.
Why didn't I think of that? You could do a Van Gogh.
Absolutely, yes. It could be a bit of a starry mushroom.
I love it.
Anyway, let me just check. We've got another question in here, by the way. This is about the bread sauce that you were talking about, which I agree with you. Bread sauce is just delicious, isn't it? And it seems a shame to only have it at Christmas. It should be wheeled out more often through the year. But anyway, can you freeze gluten-free bread sauce?
Do you know what? I've never tried, but I bet you can. I bet you can put it in an airtight container and freeze it. I think that's a better suggestion than making it a few hours in advance.
Right.
I haven't tried, but I would give it a go.
Perfect. Well, I think that's it. Let's just do a bit of a recap on how people can find out more about you and also follow your Christmas journeys of making little cookie dough bites with what was it you put in? I would keep wanting to say chili, but it's not chili. It's
chili with ginger.
Ginger, that's right. Yes, still a bit spicy in the throat, which is lovely.
Oh yeah, that's kind of you. Yeah, so basically, if you go to www.lifeonaricecake.com, you can find out everything you need to know about me, including things like my Instagram handle, which is @lifeonaricecake. You can see me on Facebook. I have a wonderful Facebook group called The Coeliac Haven. So if you go to facebook.com/groups/The Coeliac Haven, and that link, by the way, is in my Instagram. So just go to the link in bio on Instagram and you'll find it. Then you will have to answer a couple of questions such as, are you celiac? And then you will be welcomed into the group with open arms. We have so much fun, really do. I'll give you an example. We have Snapshot Thursday where people upload pictures of things that they have made gluten-free that week. And oh my goodness, one of the group had made these gorgeous Christmas cupcakes this week, and they just, I so wanted to have one. So really worth looking at that. @Life on a Rice Cake on Instagram will show you all the links you need.
Absolutely fantastic. So we have to just say a big thank you to Ali, Ali Walsh, who is a big part of the Free From Festival. And it's always my great pleasure to hear her innovative ideas and fascinating stories and inspirational journey. Thanks a lot, Ali.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So we're going to take a short break now. We are coming up at 12:30 with our next session, which is going to be Meet the Makers. And this is where we will be speaking with the founders of Jake's Boost and of True Foods, finding out more about their business, how they set it up, how they run it, what was their inspiration. So that's coming up in just about 15 minutes time. We're going to take a short break. We will see you in 15 minutes time.